folks. You are listening to Sound and Recording Podcast.
Sound and Recording Podcast, Ausgabe 11. Diesmal sitze ich jetzt nicht wie gewohnt hier mit meinem Gesprächspartner, sondern ich war unterwegs in Kanada, genauer gesagt in Alberta. Dort habe ich auf meinem Weg von Calgary durch die Rocky Mountains und den Banff National Park über Red Deer nach Edmonton in 5 Tagen insgesamt 5 Tonstudios besucht. Die Strecke, die ich dabei zurückgelegt habe, entspricht ungefähr der von München nach Bremen, obwohl die Strecke auf der Karte eigentlich gar nicht so weit aussieht. Aber das liegt natürlich an der riesigen Fläche dieses unglaublichen Landes. Zum Vergleich, Kanada hat eine Fläche von fast 10 Millionen Quadratkilometern. Deutschland hat im Vergleich eine Fläche von 357.000 Quadratkilometern, was einfach bedeutet, dass das Land fast 650.000 Quadratkilometer größer ist. Und allein die Provinz Alberta hat eine Fläche von 660.000 Quadratkilometern. Das heißt, dass diese Provinz deutlich größer ist als Deutschland. Also das ist fand ich schon ziemlich beeindruckend. Und eine weitere Zahl, die beeindruckt, ist die Bevölkerungsdichte, nämlich in Deutschland leben ca. 83 Millionen Menschen und in Kanada lediglich 35 Millionen. Also das ist mehr als doppelt so viel. Und das bedeutet, dass in Deutschland knapp 232 Einwohner auf einem Quadratkilometer leben und in Kanada sind es gerade einmal 3,9. Das zeigt, wie wenig dieses riesige Land einfach besiedelt ist und deutet auch auf die enorm weiten Strecken zwischen den Ballungsgebieten hin, was es beispielsweise für das Touren von Bands extrem schwierig macht. Dann gibt es in Kanada auch 2 Amtssprachen, nämlich Englisch und Französisch. Die Beschilderungen in allen öffentlichen Gebäuden sowie die Geldscheine sind alle zweisprachig. Mit den Betreibern der Studios habe ich dann auch über die Mentalität der Kanadier gesprochen und gefragt, ob Eishockey wirklich so eine große Rolle spielt und ob es wirklich immer kalt ist. Und dazu kann ich halt sagen, es ist enorm kalt. Denn als ich dort war, waren minus 36 Grad. Das war schon wirklich sehr, sehr kalt. Aber wir haben natürlich auch über die kanadische Studioszene, die Musikindustrie und die Entwicklung des Musikkonsums und das Thema Altersvorsorge und die sozialen Umstände in Kanada gesprochen. Aufgenommen habe ich die Gespräche mit meinem Recording-Mikrofon IXM von Yellowtech, das mir freundlicherweise für diese Reise zur Verfügung gestellt wurde. Das ist einfach ein Standalone-Recording-Mikrofon, über das man direkt auf SD-Karte speichern und ohne einzupegeln aufnehmen kann. Denn das macht das Mikrofon von selbst und so konnte ich mich während der Aufnahme voll auf die Gespräche konzentrieren. Und nicht wundern, ich habe den einzelnen Gesprächspartnern öfter mal die gleiche Frage gestellt und alleine um verschiedene Sichtweisen auf das Thema zu bekommen. Zuerst treffe ich Jason Torkin, den Manager im Bereich Building Audio im Studio Bell, dem National Music Center in Calgary. Das Studio Bell ist ein riesiges Museum, in dem Musikinstrumente ausgestellt sind, die die kanadische Musikkultur geprägt haben. Also beispielsweise alte Gitarren und Amps von Neil Young oder auch Tonto, dem riesigen Modular-Synthesizer, der maßgeblich für den Signature-Sound von Stevie Wonders Superstition verantwortlich war. Ja, und in dem futuristischen Gebäude sind aber auch 3 Studios mit wirklich richtig alten analogen Pulten als Zentrale eingebaut. Und auf die alten Instrumente, die ich eben angesprochen habe, kann man teilweise sogar als Musiker während den Recordings in den Studios zurückgreifen, was einfach eine unglaublich coole Sache ist. Und mein persönliches Highlight war allerdings der mobile Recording-Truck der Stones, der dort steht und auf dem viele Live-Alben wie beispielsweise von Frank Zappa, Deep Purple, Toto und Co. entstanden sind. Und die Aufnahme mit Jason zu diesem Podcast fand dort in der Regie statt, an einem Platz, an dem Mick Jagger definitiv schon mal stand. Und ja, das war für mich auf jeden Fall ein absolutes Highlight und Gänsehaut pur. Aber jetzt geht's los. Hier kommt das Gespräch mit Jason, mit dem ich hauptsächlich über die Studioszene Kanada, das Musikbusiness und kanadische Klischees gesprochen habe. Viel Spaß. So yeah, first, hi Jason.
Hi.
Welcome to the Sound and Recording Podcast and thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, let's talk about the Canadian studio scene. Would you describe it as healthy? Are there a lot of studios popping up, or what's the status quo?
Yeah, so like I guess I've been in this game for the last 15 years or so, and I've really seen a transformation of the industry. So we've seen a transformation from a viable kind of commercial facilities transition into kind of more producer engineers working out of their own facilities. So in that way, there's been it's been a pretty abrupt change of a lot of studios closing and a lot of great rooms and big rooms closing, and more people from the technical perspective of engineers and producers trying to figure out how this new landscape works for them. So generally that's, a facility within their own home, so minimizing costs that way. And then like producers and engineers are the same thing these days. Like there's not a lot of producers that go out and seek studios and then hire that engineer that's at that studio. They're usually the engineer, and they're making the coffee, and they're doing all this and helping load in the gear. So everyone, I think this is kind of globally. I've seen this happen outside of the kind of the major centers like LA, where there's just so many studios that still kind of works. But generally, I think we've been kind of going through the same thing that everyone else is going through, in that the record business has gone from a dollars business to a sub pennies business with streaming now. And I think it's really going to take some more time before the creative work of making recordings is really valued as a commodity within our society again. And I think that the tech kind of bubble really spurred this. Big companies like Google and Apple, their business models rely on content that is free. And so I think us as content creators are really getting hurt the worst. Now, that said, we're also really resilient. And that's why I think I've seen, rather than it go away, I've seen it change from big commercial studios to people doing it on their own terms.
Yeah. And do you see a difference between the studios in the city and on the countryside? I mean, your country is so big, yeah?
Yeah, so part of that transition with property values like going really up, it's more, so with recording studio, you need lots of space. And when you have lots of space, you can do a lot with it. And as especially within a city, it's hard to change your garage into a recording studio and not annoy your neighbors without a significant amount of investment. So we've seen a lot of kind of outside, kind of more rural, country-based facilities pop up. And I think that's really similar to the same phenomena that I was talking about engineers and producers having their own room to work in. And so rather than having a studio bill and an engineer bill, it's kind of all become the same thing. And it's when you're an engineer producer and you're trying to make that work economically, it makes a lot more sense to go rural and get a big property where you're not going to annoy your neighbors, and that you have all this room to kind of custom build rooms within a nice recording space.
Let's talk about some cliches, yeah? We Germans, we think we got the best microphones in the world. And I know that you got a big Neumann collection, and you already told me that you think that the M88 from Biodynamic is the best microphone in the world.
Well, I think it's like one of the best microphones. The problem with like saying anything is the best is like you can't we've all had that experience where you put up the best microphone in the studio and it doesn't sound that good, and then you get a Shure SM58 and it does sound better, and that theory goes to hell. But in general, I just think that the German engineering of the earliest 19th century and the approach that they took of this scientific approach and the manufacturing techniques that they were using at the time, and the fact that we're using microphones from 40 years ago or 50 years ago speaks a lot to that mentality. So I'm really more, as an engineer and a technical person, really fond of how seriously they took their job, and how like the engineers at Neumann really cared about every single detail of that microphone. And I think what people are lusting over when they do use one of these classic German tube mics is they're being exposed to that level of engineering, and it's making them a better engineer because the tool that they have is so well engineered. So I am like, as far as the classic Neumann mics, U67, M49, U47, of course, those are some of the most fabulous microphones ever made. But the lesser known ones, Beyerdynamic, M88s, M160s, those are equally as good. But I can afford them because they're only a few $100s. Yeah. You know, not in like, it's great to lust over 67s and 47s, but like, unless you're a multi-millionaire, it's not really significant in any one of our careers. Like the good thing is there's a lot of studios that do have these tools available. But I'm just thinking like, it's not any one specific microphone from that era, but more a mentality that their engineers had, and that the technical people had, and a pride that translates to every time you plug in a microphone. Yeah. I think that's really cool and unique.
Yeah, I think it's the same philosophy behind as we have here.
Yes.
In the recording truck.
Yes. Yeah. So we're sitting right here in the Rolling Stones mobile in front of the Helios recording console, which is one of the most sonically fantastic pieces of equipment that has ever been produced for audio, period. And it's very much the same thing. It's a passion and a dedication to make the equipment as capable as possible. One of my favorite things about this desk in particular is that it was really the engineering goals. What it was designed to do was to capture a performance that was already happening in the room. So much of today's recording technology is about manipulating performances after they happen. And really, this era, whether it's the early 60s, late 60s, early 70s, all of this equipment was designed to capture what was already happening in the room. It's not enhancing or changing performance. It's just capturing what's already there. And what I always say to people is if you were in the south of France in the early 70s and you walked into the basement where the Rolling Stones were recording Exile to Main Street, you would have heard the same sounds that you hear on that record. This truck was just the medium that captured that, you know. So it's this diligence to say that the equipment is to capture what's going on in the room. There's no magic in this console. It's just like it's almost in a way the equipment gets out of the way. You know, and when my experience with recording with this desk in particular, you know, the modern recording studio is okay, well, we only have 3 good preamps. What are we going to use it on? And then you're always trying to say, okay, well, I'm going to use this on the vocal and then this on the bass. And like, you're always kind of, okay, well, use the API on this, use the Neve on this. When someone walks into the studio and they see this console, they don't say, oh, let's get a Neve on the drums. And they everything goes through the same preamp. Yeah. And it all supports what's going on in the room, which is the song.
can I ask you some questions about Canadian cliches? Because I'm listening to a lot of Canadian and Northern American podcasts and hockey podcasts when they interview a German hockey player, and they always are talking about the German cliches. So that the Germans are always eating potato salad and sauerkraut and white sausages. And now I want to talk about the Canadian cliches.
Okay.
So how would you describe the Canadian way of life?
So I think a big part of it, which most people don't pay attention to because they're just not here, is the weather.
So it's so cold.
It's so cold, and really we only have a few months of summer that's really warm. So I think it all stems from the weather. So I think the reason that we develop all of these amazing engineers and musicians is because part of the year there's nothing to do. It's very cold. Yeah. You got to hunker down. And so you get a lot of people that just lock themselves in their basement and play guitar all winter, or play with their bandmates, or they'll make records all winter. And so that is a big part of it. And it also spills into our other cliches and pastimes. So the main one is hockey. And hockey always comes from the same thing, where it's like, it's super cold. So what are you going to do? So pour some water out and like make some ice and skate around, and that kind of warms you up. And then there's a competition aspect to it too. So like that's just another thing to do when it's cold out and there's nothing to do.
Yeah, the streets are empty. And yesterday I've been to the hockey game, to the Battle of Alberta.
Yes.
The Oilers against the Calgary Flames, and the streets were empty. And then but the Saddle Dome was sold out.
Yes.
But it was so cold. I was outside for 20 minutes and then my beard was frozen.
Yes. Yes. It's one of those things, like the studio is always warm as long as your heater's not broken, but it's always nice to come in and create when there's nothing else to do outside, you know?
And did you play hockey?
I did.
Okay.
I did. So I grew up playing hockey because I grew up in Winnipeg in Manitoba.
Okay.
And there it's minus 30 the entire winter and there's nothing else to do. So always hockey is a big part of culture here.
So yeah, Winnipeg Jets fan or?
Yes, but my Jets went to Phoenix.
Yeah, okay. It was the original one with Timo Selänne. He started.
I was a Selänne fan.
Yeah.
And I actually, in the very last season of the Jets playing in Winnipeg, I played, during the intermission, sometimes they'll have kids that come out and they'll play a match. And I was one of those kids back in the day. I played in the Winnipeg Arena and I actually scored a hat trick.
Okay, good.
and what I didn't realize is no one cared because they were all using the washroom and getting more beer. But I felt like a superstar back then because I was like, here I am on the NHL ice and I'm scoring goals. So it doesn't get, for a Canadian kid, it doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah,
that's the dream.
Great. And I know that the Americans are saying that the Canadians do apologize for everything, and that sorry is the most popular word. And
yes. So there's two things you'll hear Canadians say all the time. One is a.
Yeah, at the end.
Yes. Yeah. That's a pretty nice. That was a pretty nice shot, eh?
Yeah.
And then.
And what do you expect as an answer?
Oh, it's not. It's just like it's almost like a rhetorical question. It's
okay.
We're not expecting. It's just like It's just like acknowledgement. I don't know. It's just like. It's one of those weird things. Only Canadians do that. I don't know why.
Okay, last thing. Do you eat maple syrup to everything? So
no, I don't eat maple syrup to everything. Usually just pancakes. And I think that's pretty like the rest of the world too. Like, but I do like Tim Hortons. So
Tim Hortons, yeah.
Yeah.
It's still on my to-do list, yeah.
Okay, well, maybe we have to go right now.
Okay, let's go. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, and thanks for hosting me, yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you can come tour the facility, and I'm glad you can show people what we're up to here in Calgary in Alberta.
Yeah, great venue. You have to come over if you're here in Calgary.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so bye.
Bye.
Mein nächster Stop sind die OCL Studios in Chestermere. Und Jason hat mich ja bereits darauf hingewiesen, dass Studios auf dem Land und etwas weiter ab vom Schuss auch ihre Vorteile haben. Allein, weil sie dort lauter sein können und auch den räumlichen Platz haben. Und danach war ich eben in den OCL Studios, eben einem solchen Studio, circa 30 Kilometer außerhalb von Calgary in Chestermere. Und ja, auf meinem Weg dorthin war ich nach ein paar Kilometern auf dem Highway und einer Landstraße plötzlich auf einem nicht geräumten Feldweg. Und mir kamen eigentlich nur Pickups entgegen, die 2 Meter höher waren als meine Kia Mittelklasse. Und plötzlich stehe ich dann vor einem riesen Anwesen, kein Hinweis auf OCL Studios, kein Hinweis auf irgendein anderes Tonstudio oder Hinweis auf irgendwas anderes. Und ich dachte eigentlich schon, dass ich falsch bin. Aber dann wurde ich aber freundlich von Megan, der Studiomanagerin und der Tochter des Eigentümers, begrüßt. Und sie führte mich dann durch das Studio, in dem Bands in einer eigenen, komplett ausgestatteten Wohnung leben können. Die Wohnung verfügt über ein Bad, 5 Schlafräume und dort können halt bis zu 7 Personen übernachten. Und im angeschlossenen Wohnbereich des Vaters und des Eigentümers Dan, zu dem man auch irgendwie ohne Abtrennung gelangt, gibt es dann auch noch die Möglichkeit für einen weiteren Schlafplatz, wenn zum Beispiel eine Band mit Produzent kommt. Und Dan, der Eigentümer, der erzählt mir, dass er eigentlich nur mal eine Platte mit seiner Band aus den 80er Jahren aufnehmen wollte und ja, das damals nie dazu gekommen ist. Und ein Freund von ihm, der baut eben Studios, allerdings nur große, hat er mir erzählt. Und deshalb hat dann Ben gesagt, ja, okay, dann baue ich halt ein großes Studio mit 3 Regien, unter anderem mit einer Neve 88 RS, einer SSL G4000 und mehreren Aufnahmeräumen. Und ja, vor Ort spreche ich dann mit Megan und dem Engineer Josh über die Musikszene, die Country Music und Tim Hortons, also eine Fastfood-Kette, die Jason auch bereits angesprochen hat. Die scheint hier eine große Nummer zu sein. Also viel Spaß beim Zuhören. So I'm sitting here together with Josh and Megan from the OCL Studios. And yeah, Megan, how would you describe the Canadian recording scene? Are there a lot of studios popping up? Is the number going down?
That is hard to answer. So Canada's really lucky because we have an amazing grant system. So a lot of the projects that come through everybody's doors is funded, which really helps to keep things going. And then it also just kind of comes down to what's in vogue right now. So like Billie Eilish is super trendy. I think she literally made a lot of her songs in her bedroom with her brother.
Yeah.
So people see that and they're like, oh, well, why would I go to a studio if I can make a song in my basement with my friend? Which is legit. And then there's still the full band. You can't do this in your basement at home. So what I would say is that it's still thriving. I would just say that the standards are higher. So when there are options to go home and do it by yourself with GarageBand and your Mac, the people that are making studios and are being producers and are being engineers just have to be that much more on their game and have to bring that much more value to the project, which I think is a great thing.
Yeah, it keeps us all on our toes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, we work in tandem with a lot of like home-based studios. You know, I might see a project that just has drums for a day and that's it. And then I don't hear the project till the end.
And is there a big competition between the studios?
I mean, there's definitely a healthy competition. Yeah, and we all know each other, and we all work with each other. We look out for each other, but competition is competition. We all want the gig.
And do you think it's an advantage to be here more located on the countryside? But you are not that. You are very close to Calgary, yeah?
Yeah, we're kind of best of both worlds. Like, the city is 25 minutes away. We've got a town 7 minutes away with liquor stores and Tim Hortons. So what else do you need?
Tim Hortons, yeah, you don't.
Like I said, having this much space is such a luxury, and being able to host bands is amazing. And it's given us the opportunity to do projects that other places would not be able to do. So just last month in December, we had a band from Japan come, and they were here for 2 weeks.
Okay.
And they, how often do you get to have a band from Japan come and basically move in for half a month? And not every studio is able to accommodate stuff like that. So it allows us some really cool opportunities.
Yeah, what about the music scene here in Canada? Is there a genre which is very popular at the moment?
I mean, the thing about Canada is humongous. So what's cool in Toronto might be different from what you see here.
Okay.
So definitely, it sounds like a cliche, but you do see a lot of country music this side of the country. Well, actually, kind of this province, because there's not a ton in Vancouver. So Alberta definitely does have a lot of country music going on.
I was really surprised about that, to be honest. Yeah. But I wasn't that deep in the Canadian music stuff, yeah.
Right. What did you think it kind of was more?
Yeah, I expected that it's more the general charts stuff. When I hear Western music or country music, it's always something like Nashville.
Right.
Yeah. That's from the capital.
Yeah, and that's kind of like between us, Alberta and Nashville. It's the country music scene. The Canadian country music scene. We're neck and neck with the amount of projects that go to Nashville and come here, and actually OCL in particular. We see a lot of projects go to Nashville to record, but there's a ton that come here. So country music is thriving right now. Yeah. And it's a great thing. It's actually, the artists that are coming up right now are amazing. Yeah. So it's well on the rise,
And that's the other neat advantage that we have. So the Canadian dollar is not fantastic compared to the American dollar. So instead of a Canadian artist flying themselves to Nashville, or a band putting themselves up, paying US dollar for studios and players out there, what we'll see is people finding the producer that has the sound that they want, and they fly just that producer down. So everything out there using Canadian musicians, get to pay in Canadian dollars, but have the US producer running the show. And for us, it's no extra charge for them to do that because we just have the rooms here. So that has been something we've been able to be a part of, which is really cool.
In Germany, everyone who wants to be successful moves to Berlin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you have to be in a capital city.
Right, yeah.
And I have the feeling that it's completely different here in Canada.
Yeah, there's two large capitals as far as music scenes, and then we're like the third. But the larger ones are Toronto and Vancouver.
Okay.
And then Calgary seems to be the third largest. Vancouver just has a massive film scene. So in turn, the music scene sort of trickles from that. And Toronto as well. There's huge television and movie scene as well, where the music seems to just follow.
But kind of what we were saying before with the influx of country music, so that's what we see here is everybody thinks that they have to move to Nashville. So an interesting challenge for us in Alberta is how can we up our game with our studios, up our game with our producers, our musicians, our engineers, so that these younger artists don't feel that anymore. They're not like, well, I've got to ship up and go to Nashville. It's like, no, like we have world-class everything here. Stay here.
Yeah. So there are young country musicians.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, crazy.
Yeah, it's the young generation of musician right now is ridiculous.
Okay.
Which has been amazing to see. But we've been seeing in the 20-somethings just these guitar players and people picking up pedal steel, like, and becoming just monster players.
Okay.
Drummers as well. A few great bass players. Like, the younger generation is definitely, schooled well. And the older generation is really looking after making sure they're schooled very well.
Yeah.
So it's a totally new crop.
Okay. In Germany, you don't make money with selling records.
Yeah.
So you have to sell merchandise, or you have to go on tour. But isn't it hard to tour in such a big country?
I've always said the hardest working musician lives in Canada. It's 7 hours to the next venue, and it's the grueling winters. Like right now, it's minus 25.
With wind chill, it's minus 37.
There you go. So like, if you break down, you're in minus 37 winter, and you go through just countless flat tires and trucks not starting. All these things happen on the road, and it happens more frequently in Canada. And then you have to deal with the winter.
Yeah. So my husband is a guitar player for a Canadian country artist. His name is Brett Kissel. And last year they went on tour to promote the new album. It was called the We Were That Song Tour. It was 2 parts. They did 112 shows over 6 months just in Canada. Like, they were just hitting every town on the way. And that's how long it is. Like, they hit every province, every territory, and it took 6 months.
And that's how you can make money?
Yeah. So some kind of mentors of mine out in Toronto, their sort of catchphrase is that you're not in the music business, you're in the ticket and t-shirt business.
Yeah.
Because that is what it is. Like, streaming numbers are not, nobody's surviving off streaming. So it's tickets and t-shirts.
Yeah, and how does streaming affect the Canadian music business?
I mean, I think streaming affects everybody across the board. I know the States with their Music Modernization Act, I think they're a little bit ahead of us in getting kind of money where we're not getting it. The one thing that I don't love about streaming is the death of liner notes. Because that used to be basically your business card.
Yeah.
And now people aren't seeing what musician was on this, what producer did it. So that's what I would like to see come back.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, iTunes it was this big thing that iTunes just put in their lyrics into the liner notes, but there's still no liner notes. Like, it's just crazy to me. It's such an easy thing just to add.
Yeah.
And it's up to the artist to add them. Like, the lyrics are up to the artist to add them into their iTunes profile. But yeah, it's just quick and easy credits. That's it. Like, we live and die by our credits. Simple.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you.
Anytime. Drop by anytime. We're not that far out of the way.
Dass Country Music in Alberta sehr populär ist, haben wir jetzt bereits gehört. Und deshalb passt auch mein 3. Stop, denn ich besuche Country-Produzenten Ben Crane in seinem Jingle Bob Studio in der Nähe von Eckville. Und Ben lebt mit seiner Frau auf dem Land, also wirklich auf dem Ranchland, wie man hier sagt. Und er lebt also die beiden wohnen in einem kleinen Mobile Home, würde ich schon fast sagen. Und gegenüber steht eine kleine Blockhütte, in der eben sein Studio integriert ist. Und als ich ankam, stand seine Frau vor dem Haus, fegte den Schnee weg und er stand auf der Terrasse des gegenüberliegenden Holzhauses, also seinem Studio. Und ich wurde von den beiden wirklich sehr, sehr herzlich begrüßt. Seine Frau kam dann auch irgendwie mit einem Kabel rausgerannt und meinte, ich solle damit die Batterie von meinem Leihwagen laden. Das ist wohl da üblich und wir haben dann vergeblich die Buchse an meinem Auto gesucht. Und Ben rief sogar dann bei der Autovermietung an und hat gefragt, wo die Buchse bei dem Leihwagen sei. Und die meinten dann nur, dass ihre Autos gar nicht über sowas verfügen. Und Sherman, also Bens Frau, erklärte mir dann, dass ja, sich nachts eben bei minus 40 Grad dann auch gerne mal die Batterien entladen und dabei auch kaputt gehen. Ja, dann danach gehe ich mit Ben ins Studio und da sieht es auch wirklich dann schon nach Country aus. Also da hängt ein Bisonschädel über dem Kamin, Cowboy-Stiefel stehen rum, die als Blumenvase dienen und Cowboy-Hüte hängen an der Wand und generell ist alles irgendwie sehr rustikal eingerichtet. Es gibt eigentlich nur einen großen Raum, das ist die Regie und das Zentrum ist ein großer Holzschreibtisch, der auch eine historische Vergangenheit hat und gehörte einmal einem Filmproduzenten. Das heißt also, auf dem Tisch wurden dann früher mal Filme geschrieben und auf dem Tisch steht dann ein iMac, daneben stehen ein paar Studiomonitore und dann eben ein mobiles Rack mit 2 Preamps drin. Und ja, dann eben gibt es noch eine kleine Küchennische, es gibt auch noch einen kleinen Aufnahmeraum und das war's. Und Ben erzählt mir viel über die Philosophie von Country Music und seine Verbindungen zur Country-Hochburg in Nashville und die Arbeiterschicht, den Cowboys und den Arbeitern auf den Ölfeldern, die mit ihrer Musik zu ihm kommen und die er produziert und aufnimmt. Also Ben bezeichnet die Country Music auch als Sprache der Arbeiter und es ist wirklich sehr spannend, wie emotional Ben über die Country Music spricht und welche Verbindung und welche Bedeutung die Menschen, beziehungsweise welche Bedeutung die Country Musik für die Menschen dort hat. Also es ist wirklich sehr, sehr beeindruckend. Und ja, ich wünsche euch viel Spaß beim Interview mit Ben. Welcome, Ben. Thanks for joining our podcast. Ben, you're a country musician.
Yeah.
You are a cartoonist. You're an engineer. Is there anything else?
Oh, I wash the dishes and clean the toilets too.
Really?
Yeah.
Your genre is obviously country music. What can you tell us about the Canadian country scene? Because when I think of country music, I always got Nashville in my mind.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I love working with Nashville musicians because their chops are all ready to go. You send them a song, they're used to their instrument, they're ready to go because they play all the time. Country music up here, it all depends on whereabouts you are.
I heard that it's in Alberta very popular.
Yeah.
More popular than in the rest of the country.
That could be because Alberta is, a lot of the people are rural. You know, they're farmers, they're ranchers, or just working people, you know, like blue collar. And that is, country music, I think, generally is the music of the working man. And so a lot of the songs are lyric driven, words driven. They're stories or ballads, and so that seems to be why people love it around here, I guess. I have no idea why people love it or don't love it. All I know is I absolutely love it. So as far as what the scene is, I'm not exactly sure because most people seem to like rock or pop. Sometimes people look at country music and think of just a hillbilly, someone who is not very wise and not educated. But I'm okay with that because I'm not an educated man. All I can bring my clients is my ears and my heart in music, and that's why they keep coming back. A lot of guys, like I've got 2 guys that I'm just finished working with that they cowboy for a living. They stare at the back end of a cow all day long. Another guy is a farmer, and he comes when he's not seeding or harvesting. He'll come over here and work on his album. Or you've got guys that are just in town and they just like to play and sing a lot, but there's not a lot of money in it. So I seem to be able to be given the people who can't afford a big full-blown album. I can give them that same feel, that same sound, but at a lower price. So most of the guys I'm working with are singers-songwriters.
What do you charge?
I charge $500 for a day, and that's based on an 8-hour day. So that's $62.50.
And including you as an engineer or producer?
That gets anything I can do, including making the coffee.
But you got a connection to Nashville, right?
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to get to know several of the players down there that play on everybody else's albums as well. We've got Sam Levine, plays woodwinds, saxophone, penny whistle. He's on just about anybody's record that you get. Bruce Hoffman was from Branson area. He used to be Mel Tillis's fiddle player. And he's kind of my go-to fiddle and steel guy. I've got Jeff Taylor is a piano player for the Time Jumpers in Nashville. That's fronted by Vince Gill.
Okay.
And they play every Monday night. And this guy's just amazing. And all these guys, I went down and took a trip to Nashville last spring. I wanted to meet these people that I've worked with over the years, but just never met them other than through email. And I thought that me being the little guy out here in the middle of nowhere in Alberta, when you tend to think of those guys in Nashville as they won't have to give you the time of day because they're professional, and I'm just, I'm professional too, but not in that same way. So you think that they won't give you the time of day. Every single one of them treated me as a peer. Kent Wells is Dolly Parton's producer. He sat down, he turned his phone off, upside down, turned around and said, "Tell me your story."
Really?
And I had asked him for a half an hour of his time, because I'd used him a couple times as banjo and nylon string guitar. And he ended up giving me an hour and a half. And I explained my system to him, and I said, I don't understand technology. I'm not that guy, but I have an ear. And he laughed at me and he said, "You know what?" He says, "You and I are so alike, it's not funny." So to hear a fellow like that consider me as a peer to him was very humbling. And those are the guys I like to work with.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great city. I've never been there, but I just read a column, one of our writers. He produced Simple Minds, Peter Gabriel, back in the days. Yeah. And he just spent 24 hours in Nashville. And yeah, he had a lot of fun. He was listening to a lot of Dolly Parton stuff. Yeah. It's a great scene. And how much do they charge the musicians from there?
They're about the same as what we get down here. The average per song session player charge here is $100 Canadian. Down there, they'll charge anywhere from $75 to $150. I had the pleasure of working with one of the greatest Telecaster players in country music. His name's Red Volkart. And you look up any YouTube video of George Jones or Merle Haggard, and there's Red in the background playing. And he charged me $150. And he was just, again, I thought he wouldn't even talk to me, but he treated me just like one of the boys, you know, just no ego. These guys understand music. They understand the heart behind music. And so we talk heart to heart, and I love it.
And it's hard to find some of those musicians here in Alberta?
There's a lot of good musicians here in Alberta, and I like to use as many as I can. But oftentimes I find that the thing that is nice about Nashville is that these guys are playing all the time because it's such a big music scene. So these guys are playing every day. And sometimes you get Alberta session players, they'll play maybe once a week. And so it's difficult, unless there's a few of them, go-to guys like that I go to. Jeff Bradshaw on steel. He's actually just a neighbor of mine. He won the CCMA award steel player for 5 years in a row.
Okay.
And then they told him to quit applying because they weren't going to give it to him anymore. Got to make room for the next guy. Craig Bignell on banjo. Bruce Hoffman actually moved to Alberta, so he's an Alberta boy now. And he's, again, like I said, he's my go-to fiddle and steel player. And these guys, they're playing a lot. So, but I want to use my countrymen as much as I can. Okay. Because I'm a Canadian, but I'm also an American. I have dual citizenship.
Oh, okay.
So both boys are mine. Cool. Yeah.
And is there a difference? Is there a different style between the Nashville? Or is there a difference between the Nashville country music and the Alberta country music?
No, I don't think. As far as style of playing, no. But I mean, there is an Alberta sound. I'm not exactly sure what it is.
Okay.
But it's every area region is gonna have kind of their own sound depending on what's important. But Nashville is such a huge influence up here that it's pretty much the same. You know, same licks and riffs on your guitar and your fiddle and your steel. But the differences become where you put different. Like one area will draw from several different genres. Like around here, there's a lot of acoustic feel. You know, so they'll use an upright bass instead of an electric bass, for example. You know, but it all depends on the genre. When someone comes into my studio here and says, "Let's build an album," I like to stay away from one specific genre myself because I like lots, and I would prefer to serve the song as, you know. So if the song is a country blues type song, then let's really blues it up and not sacrifice the blues feel just because you want it in the country genre. You know, like go ahead and make it very blues. If it's a very acoustic, bluegrassy driven song, then let's make it as bluegrassy as we can. But of course, it all seems to look back to Nashville. It's like Nashville got there first. Yeah.
But there is a lot of modern country music. When I'm listening to the radio, I like listen to country music when I'm driving down the road, on my road trip.
Yeah.
And I recognize that there is that I would say Nickelback modern sound in a country style. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like today's country is yesterday's rock.
Yeah, okay.
It's like and there's always a big discussion about what's country and what ain't. And really to me, it really comes down to, instead of musical stylings, it does come down to lyrics. Of course, I prefer classic country, like George Jones, Alan Jackson, Merle Haggard, that kind of stuff. That's where I like. But I'm not going to look at you and say, well, you like more of a Nickelback sounding country, so then yours is not country, but mine is. I'm not going to say that, because...
But I don't like that Nickelback sound.
yeah, me either. I like to have lyrics that say something. I don't like fluffy lyrics that just kind of, oh baby, oh tailgate, dirt road, oh baby, Give me some meat. Give me a story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I heard a song, but I forgot the lyrics. But I was wondering about the lyrics while I was listening to it. It was "Baby, come on, baby, come on."
Yeah,
20 times.
Yeah, and that was just, that's not my style.
Okay.
But if someone else likes it, then go for it.
So it means that the Canadian music industry is influenced by the US?
Oh, very definitely. But there's also a part about the Canadian music industry that is fiercely patriotic to Canada. There's some kickback against Nashville with some of the artists that I've worked with, where they don't want to have anybody from Nashville on their album. They want it all Canadian. And I understand that, because they want to, how do I say it? They want people to realize, and I understand this and agree with it, that Canada is just as important as Nashville. Not saying nothing against Nashville, but it's just saying, hey, look, there's more than just Nashville out here. There's us in the middle of Western Alberta. And there's some fantastic musicians here that have just a different take on it. And I like that,
Cool.
So I see it both ways.
So you're going to a lot of concerts here in the area?
I have, smaller concerts. Like, I don't enjoy stadium sound, like a big...
Yeah.
You just can't reproduce. You can try, but you can't reproduce. And it's more with a stadium, big concerts like that. It's more about the energy of the music than the actual musicality of it. Went to see Alison Krauss one time up in Edmonton at the Winspear Center.
Okay.
Big, fancy concert hall. And it was good. But they each had their own mics. And then they went off at the end of the concert. We gave them a standing ovation. They came back and they all gathered around one mic and did kind of the dance. When Jerry would come in to do the dobro, the other guys would get out of the way and he'd come up to the mic so he's closer. And that was the best sound, the best experience of the whole night. That's what I like. So I like smaller concerts. We have a lot of, it's a very musical community here. Music is very important. So there's always live music, and some of it's just local stuff where guys are average, but their heart is in it, and so you can see that. And every once in a while we'll bring other people in for concerts. We produce some concerts here as well. We've got the little church that we go to just down at the bottom of the hill here is kind of a performing arts style of room. And it's got a nice soundboard, nice sound, and nice lights. It just gives a really nice ambience. I like the smaller concerts, 100 people, 150 in the crowd.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm on the road singing and performing as well. And that's not a band. That's generally a solo or with my youngest daughter.
Okay.
The two of us show together. Oh, a lot of fun.
And thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
It was a lot of fun, yeah.
Thank you for your interest. And man, it's so good to talk to somebody in the same industry, but from another country. That's fascinating. I love it. But it's all the same. Music is straight from the heart, no matter what country you're from.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that.
Ich bin mittlerweile in Edmonton angekommen und auf dem Weg zu den Edmontone Studios, einem kleineren Studio, in dem hauptsächlich lokale Musiker aufgenommen werden. Witziger Name für ein Tonstudio in Edmonton. Und ja, als ich die Tür des Studios endlich dann gefunden hatte, öffnete mir der Miteigentümer Trevor Rockwell die Tür, der das Studio mit einem Freund und der Unterstützung seiner Frau, die aus dem Musikbusiness kommt, führt. Und ja, mit ihm spreche ich über Musikstreaming und die Auswirkungen auf Tonstudios, Tantiemen, Altersvorsorge und wie es eben ist, mehrere Jobs zu haben, denn Trevor arbeitet neben seiner Tätigkeit im Studio noch als Dozent an einer Universität in Edmonton, wo er Geschichte unterrichtet und einen zeitlich beschränkten Vertrag hat. Und gegen Ende merke ich dann, dass ihn das Thema eigentlich etwas runterzieht und ich wechsle schnell dazu zum Thema Eishockey. Und dann sah die Welt schon plötzlich ganz anders aus. Also viel Spaß beim Gespräch mit Trevor. Okay, so welcome Trevor. Thanks for joining to our podcast.
You're welcome.
What was the first record you bought?
It was the Village People, YMCA.
Really?
Yeah.
And was it on vinyl or?
Yes, vinyl, yeah.
And how were you listening to music back in those days?
On record players, yeah, it was the 1970s. I don't know the exact year that Village People record came out, but it was the first time my parents let me buy my own. I do have a memory of being about 3 years old and going over to our neighbor's house with my older sister and her friend Marcy, and we listened to the Bay City Rollers on her record player. So things were a bit different back then in the 70s. You could only listen to the radio or the records that you had. And so going to the store was really exciting. You get to pick out whatever you want. And I've always had a soft spot for disco for some reason.
Great. And how are you listening to music today? Mm-hmm. How has it changed over the years?
It's changed quite a bit. I used to work in record stores in the late 80s and early 90s and saw the compact disc. And I've gone through lots of different phases personally, and I've kind of, being a music maker, there's times when I've really not listened to a lot of other music, sometimes for years, and then I've rediscovered listening to music different times, different technologies usually involved when that rediscovery happens. But right now, I stream music with... I use one of the services. I keep thinking I should use a different one for the sake of the which ones have a better relationship with the music makers.
So you don't use Spotify?
I do use Spotify is what I'm suggesting, but I know that there are ones that pay the artist more, and so I should probably go through the trouble of canceling and starting a new subscription and then teaching the algorithm what kind of music I like. Those are the kind of things that are in the way of me doing that. But just to make a statement, I suppose that extra fraction of a penny that Deezer or Apple or I think Tidal even is higher than Spotify, those other ones, just to they say like vote with your money. I always tell everyone to stop listening to music on YouTube though, for a number of reasons, not just the payment, but the sound quality is atrocious. And
And what would you say is the most important, the most famous streaming service here in Canada?
Well, it seems like for my peers and I, it's either Spotify or Apple Music. So it seems like more people are using Spotify. I'm not sure why personally. I've been a long time Apple user, and there's a lot of things about Apple that make me extremely frustrated. And at the time that I made the decision of which to use, I was looking for some older recordings, 60s and 70s, 50s, and even 40s, but I was looking for these older artists, and I just downloaded them on the two services, running both of them on their kind of, free version. But I found that the Apple algorithm was sending me not the original recordings, but people who had redone the recordings. And I thought, well, this is just, as a music fan, this is completely bonkers and not what I'm looking for. So I said no to Apple, and I went with the Spotify. But since then I've looked into those, not about the algorithm or the library, but the payments that they give to artists. And it's that kind of research, I think, just as a musician, is something that I should take some responsibility for. And Spotify is not the best paying service out there, so I should probably not be giving them my money. That's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
And do you know how it works with the royalties? I have absolutely no idea.
Well, I mean, I don't know the ins and outs maybe as well as I should, but I know that the two main things are that the streaming services have legal agreements that are being enforced upon them, that they will pay to the artists, that they keep track. And so through DistroKid, I get a very long chart that shows me that I get a fraction of a penny here for a play in Denmark and another play in Australia or whatever. But the other way for those streams to be monetized for the artist is through the publishing. So SOCAN in Canada, not sure what it is in other places, but that's the copyright organization essentially. So they, I think, are a little bit slower in terms of gathering the information, and I don't think they're quite as complete as they would like to be. There's a lot of changes, obviously, in music consumption that they're having to deal with as well. If I do read up on what SOCAN's been up to, I feel like they're doing a decent job of catching up, as well as being an industry voice. They're part of the industry trying to get people or companies like YouTube to pay where they're not paying. But for me, either way, whether it's through songwriting royalties or stream charges or whatever you'd call it, it doesn't add up to much anyways, right? It's like it's very, very small.
Okay.
It's not worth struggling over or getting too upset about, I guess, at my level of things, right? I just I think if there's some fluke in the future where something I made broke through to a higher level, then there might be some dollars that are worth fighting about. But at this point, it's like, I'm arguing over whether I'm going to get 10 cents or $1,
You are working as a freelancer here at the studio?
I'm working as an owner, would be the best way to put it. So the studio is freelancing, I suppose. Will I work for anyone that offers to pay me to do something for them?
Okay.
Yeah. Almost. The studio is as a group, the three of us owning it, and it being something that initially was a desire to be involved and to save something that we felt was important that might not be saved if somebody didn't save it. We weren't thinking that we were going to get into this business to make money, make a living at it. So our goal is to not lose money. Our goal is to pay the bills, basically. Yeah. So when you ask me if I'm freelancing, I basically work here to do these things, but I don't get paid personally for it. It just goes into our collective bank account for the studio to pay its bills. So, and then in terms of whether that's freelance or not, we reach out to people that we know that we'd like to work with, and then we have the web page and other ways that people we don't know can find us. And try to encourage the good projects that we've done and good people we've worked with to do more or to let their friends know. And then there's things that are, some things that we have done that we would probably do less of in the future and try to discourage. But generally speaking, it's people that are less serious about what they're doing. A lot of people can just think, I'm just going to go into the studio and I'm going to make a hit or something, but they don't really know about how much time and effort is required, right? So someone might be expecting in an hour or two that they're going to make this. And that might work for some people have made, I don't know the story exactly, but I've heard some things about that big song last year with Billy Ray Cyrus and Lil Nas or the Old Country Road, or I don't even know what it is, right?
Yeah,
so I told you what's that?
Sorry, you talked about it.
Yeah, it was a huge country hip hop crossover.
Yeah, Andrew Buluki was the producer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not that familiar with it, but I've heard that it was just a beat like purchased online and then a vocal thrown on it and then a big hit.
Yeah.
And so people will want to do that here, and we've sometimes done that, but I find that those artists tend to they just want to come in and just put that vocal down and get out of here, and then they don't understand why it doesn't sound as good as Eminem, right? And it's like, well, Eminem he produces his own music, produces his own voice, as far as I know, and he layers and spends hours on perfecting the sounds of his voice and the many different layers of his voice, right? You can't just go in an hour and expect me to throw on like the Eminem plugin or something that makes you sound different than you actually are, right? Let's come back to the idea of musicianship. That I think what I like to work with more is that just the serious people understand like the effort and time required in musicianship. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to spend hours and hours and hours and hours on something like that, but it means that you've probably already spent those hours in getting to the point where you can do it quickly, right? So the serious things, it's like what we're trying to aim for. But as like I don't have I don't come at this with a great resume. I don't have I'm not like a well-known producer, award-winning. None of those things would apply to me, right? So I've got skills and quirky track record of working with myself and some of my friends over a long time. I know a lot of tricks, I know a lot of skills, but I don't have the resume, right? So I understand that we have to build that over time. That's not going to happen immediately. It will take some time. So we're just here trying to do the best work that we can right now, and hopefully each step we make that's in the right direction leads to more things coming at us from that direction. So our goal is to make a music studio more than voiceover studio. Okay. And our whole setup of the rooms and the arrangement of microphones and the preamps and everything, the headphones, everything is set up to be a live band tracking studio or live groups of live musicians tracking. So I do a lot of MIDI stuff and songwriting like that, but ultimately we're not. That's not the direction that we're pointing in. We're pointing in a direction of, facilitating live musicians / bands to enjoy that experience of being in a studio and make something good. Yeah.
And do you have another job?
I teach history at the several universities in town, so sessional instructor. Do you want to know more about that?
No, what I want to know is is it common that engineers have more jobs than one in different businesses? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, so I don't know that many engineers in the business per se. Like my knowledge is very local, so I do know a number of the other studio owners, friends that we've known since people know them before they started studios, right? But they tend to be people who have made a living at that. That's what they do. They don't have another job. So around here, amongst people that I know, most of the people in a position like this at a studio are people that are mostly just doing that. Then I know that there are lots more people, the numbers quite a bit larger, of people that want to get into doing something like this. They don't quite have their own space. They're wanting to produce or engineer inside of the studio or other studios, the freelancers, and they tend to have a ton of different jobs on the go, to doing live sound or management, or their own bands, different ways to make to get by. For me, the teaching job was something that it fit my desire to be doing music, that it's flexible, I guess. So it was something that I didn't have to give up yet, and it seems better. It has been better in some ways than some of the other jobs I've had over the years, in terms of allowing me to do something like this.
Yeah. What about pension scheme and retirement provision? Is that correct?
Well, yeah, sure. Money. We would just call it money. Where are you gonna?
No one wants to answer that question.
No, I mean, honestly, it comes through my head every once in a while, and probably more often the older I get. But no, I haven't really got any plans. Partly, I suppose. I don't know what to say. Like, somehow for my generation, I feel like in this country, it's like it just wasn't an option. I've never had a steady job. The jobs have always been something I had to do or something. It was never like there was a job that was both enjoyable and safe, rewarding, but also wanted me to continue and was going to give me those options in the end of a pension, that sort of thing. So I've always just thought my calling was in the music business, but then haven't made certain steps that are required to make a living out of that either. So at this point in life, I'm without a real solid retirement plan, but I'm always thinking of scheming ways that I can just build more and more of some sort of income from the music industry, because I realize also that my career as a teacher there's a time limit on that. I don't actually have the job. I'm not officially employed. Like, I do contracts, so nobody has to bring me back. They don't have to fire me. They just have to not rehire me. So at any moment, I could see them wanting to give someone else an opportunity, a younger student who's just getting a degree, who needs some teaching experience. That's where I was a decade ago. So there's a time limit on that. So I'm always trying to figure out how to do something else. But I don't know what to say, like, without being too depressing about it, because in the end, I'll just hitchhike to somewhere warm or something, and scrounge through the garbage cans or something. Right?
Okay, but there are options for freelancer to do some things, or is there a thing that's founded by the government or something? You know what I mean?
Well, in my understanding, in this country /province /city, there are a number of things that you can do to get grants and whatnot, government funding. But generally speaking, government funding for the arts is not as good as it should be, as it has been historically, or as good as we imagine it is in Europe. I'm not sure how true that is, or the explanations for it all. I just feel that it's not really applicable for me most of the time. Like, my wife's always saying I should apply for this or that, and most of those things I think are completely designed for someone else, right? Like, the funding agents don't have in mind someone like me when they're deciding this. So maybe I'm just being hypercritical, but I think there's some truth to it. Yeah, I don't know what to say about it. I'm thinking that the music that I make is more likely to get me chased out of my country or province before it's going to be rewarded in any way with money, right? Like I tend to be a bit of a protest singer or something like that. Okay. So that, I just don't understand quite how I'd fit into that. And I don't think there's a lot of grant money for artists. Otherwise, I'd know a lot more people that were getting it. I don't know hardly anyone that is doing that. I think there is a possibility on the planet to make money in the music industry. I think it's quite far away from this city in a lot of ways. So it's very hard to make a living here just being here, but I think there's no reason why someone here couldn't reach markets in other places. I like being here. I like the culture, I guess, and the sense of home, because I've always lived here. For many years thought about living somewhere else, and it was really mentally challenging, and I'm glad that I've decided that I'm just going to stick it out in the city. There's a lot of really interesting things to the culture here that can help someone like me, but I realize that it's not Toronto, it's not New York, it's not LA, it's not so many other cities in the world where it would be a lot easier to be a professional musician. So part of my retirement plan in the end is to keep building ties to the outside world, to keep putting music out to. I do think that the music that I make there's an audience out there for it somewhere. It might have been a lot easier to find that audience with someone else helping, but I still haven't found that someone else to help, because there isn't much at all here in Edmonton. We're kind of on the frontier of the world in a sense, but I like that about the place. It's like it's cut off from everything. There's freedom in a sense. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And just yes or no, are the Oilers going to make the playoffs?
So I don't have to put any money on it? I'll say yes.
Okay.
Just put me on the record as saying yes, sure.
Okay, Trevor.
I said it, probably not.
Okay, Trevor, it was really fun to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, great. Nice talking to you, Mark.
Ja, als nächstes steht das Studio Velveteen Audio auf meinem Plan, was sich ebenfalls in Edmonton befindet. Randa Lynn, mein Ansprechpartner, öffnet mir hier erstmal die Hintertür, zu der ich musste, denn die Vordertür war eben eingefroren. Und Randa stellte mich dann einem seiner Partner, Brad Smith, vor. Sie betreiben das Studio insgesamt zu 5. Und vor meinem Besuch habe ich mich dann noch für den Newsletter des Studios angemeldet, in dem die Jungs wirklich regelmäßig Tutorials bieten, die Bands zeigen, was sie mit ihrer Musik nach den Aufnahmen machen können, um sie vernünftig zu promoten. Und Randa und Brad erzählen mir, ob es überhaupt in Zeiten von Playlists weiterhin Sinn macht, komplette Alben zu produzieren, ob man mit Touring in einem so großen Land wie Kanada, wo die Reisekosten einfach unglaublich hoch sein müssen, Geld verdienen kann, und wie man an Förderprogramme für Musiker kommt, wie die in Kanada aussehen und ja, wie man sich eigentlich wie man sich und seine Musik eben vernünftig vermarktet. Und außerdem sprechen wir über den Einfluss der US-Musikindustrie auf Kanada und den Unterschied zwischen dem französisch- und englischsprachigen Teil von Kanada. Ich vergesse übrigens beide vorzustellen, deshalb startet Brad und danach steigt Randa ein. Viel Spaß. Is the Canadian music business, is it affected by the US music industry?
I don't know if I can definitively comment on that. It's a tough thing to pin down.
I can say this maybe. I feel like something that I've noticed is that like we just continually try to improve our business. And, you know, there's been lots of moments where I know I've been like, well, everyone's going to start recording at home, or like no one's going to come up to Canada. Like they're all going to record in the US or whatnot, especially Edmonton. But I've just noticed that as we continue to just improve our process, I feel like it's not that we're immune to external factors such as like being affected by the US market. But I feel like we're just, because we focus on growth and improvement in all aspects, whether it be process or the actual work or how we treat our clients or whatever it may be, we're always improving on it, or at least doing our best to improve. That I feel like those types of external, being affected by the external is kind of alleviated somewhat. Yeah. I don't know if that answers your question though.
Yeah, it's a tough question, I know. Yeah, but
it feels like we're getting busier all the time, you know, and that's what we want to continue to build towards, and
we keep thinking like this got to slow down at some point, but it keeps going. So one thing that was pointed out to me, and I know I'm starting to go on a sort of a side of this, but
that's what I want.
because I was having a conversation with an old friend of mine that I played in a band with like 12 years ago, 13 years ago. And I was like, it's weird because like the modern recording technology has enabled a lot of bedroom producers, home producers to make incredible music. So my first thought when that started really happening, maybe like 8-9 years ago, was that like, yeah, we're going to be out of work eventually. Like there's going to be no need for us. But I feel like we are definitely busier than we ever have been. It's hard to keep up.
And it's a larger pool of clients that we're working with than ever as well. Yeah.
So, and I think like one thing my friend pointed out was that like, I think because people can get started, so they can get let's say a MacBook and let's say Logic and a basic interface, they can get themselves excited and make something really great. But then there's the limitation of their experience and skill, so that's when they need to go to someone who maybe does that for a living, right? Yeah. So I think that has actually opened up a much bigger client base because more people are getting into it in the first place.
Yeah.
It's a theory anyway. I don't know. Yeah.
No, it's...
Yeah. It was an interesting point. I never thought of it that way before, but yeah. So.
And yeah, we already talked about if you're working together with labels.
Well, there's not too many labels around here to work with. I would say, 99% of the time the artists are independent here. Yeah, because usually I would say most label projects in Canada are probably in Toronto.
Yeah, you know, I think we probably wouldn't be the people to speak on that. Like, it's really hard to say. I think it is geographically based too, though, right? Because like, if you think about that project that I was involved with, like, they're a band from here, their label was out in Toronto, but they recorded out in Vancouver because I think it's easier to get out to Vancouver than it was to get to Toronto.
Right.
You know, so I think it's like it just kind of depends. I don't know if, again, we're probably not the ones to speak on where all the label work is, because we would love to know, because we'd love to get a little bit more of that label work.
Yeah, it's not too common that we get. They're not that we get there, that they're even out there in Edmonton. And most of our clients are usually. It was at one point just Edmonton, but it feels like it's Alberta now. Like we do have clients come from Red Deer, for instance, from up north. We have people come from Calgary pretty regularly. But yeah, it's kind of, I would say, beyond Alberta is where usually they're going to another studio. And again, I mean, Rander's right. It's geographically based, right? Like, I mean, just to come here from Saskatchewan is still a 6 to 10 hour drive.
You saw with your drive from Calgary to the mountains to here, like it's a significant amount of time to drive, right? So,
So,
especially in the winter, I don't think anybody wants to drive that much in the winter. So,
yeah, you said that you want to support the band with their music afterwards. So, what about making real money with your music? In Germany, you got to tour around Germany, get to play gigs. What it's like in Canada? Isn't it hard to tour a country?
That's the thing.
It's like a major challenge. Yeah,
that's where you would make your money. I think it's no different here. Like most of your money is going to come from playing gigs, your merch sales, and whatnot. But the problem is in Canada, like it's the fuel costs and is outrageous.
It's very cheap.
It's Yeah, exactly. It's
in comparison to Germany.
Yeah, because I mean, I've never been to Germany, but from what I hear, it's easy to get from, or the distances between the average city are far less than Canada.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
well, the population is probably far more dense as well, right?
Yeah, we have 244 people per square kilometers, and in Canada there are 3.8 or something like that.
That sounds about right. Yeah. Well, that's when we talk about like a Western tour here, I mean, one of the cities that we include in the Western cities is Winnipeg, which is about a 14-hour drive from here. So it is, like Brad said, it's pretty.
Yeah, like if you do a Vancouver, like if you do a Western tour and it includes both Winnipeg and Vancouver, like the hours between Winnipeg and Vancouver is probably what, 23?
I think at least, yeah. If there's no accidents.
If there's no, there's always accidents on like by Revelstoke on the highways. Yeah, on the Trans-Canada, there's always like construction or whatnot.
So so I think that you're totally right. Like I think our artists and bands do face those challenges because, I mean, not only are they far apart, I mean, the cities themselves aren't that dense either. So when you do go, it's not like, oh, because there's so many people, you at least get 100 people show up. Like 100 people would be a phenomenal show on the road if you're just a starting band kind of thing.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah, you'd have to be an opener for that, I would say. Yeah,
I've played countless shows on the road to the bar staff and maybe 1-2 people. So
yeah, no kidding. It's tough for a Canadian artist, and one thing I think that we do have that I can't really speak for other regions on this, but there is a good amount of government funding to support that. So a lot of artists that we work with are either getting grants or applying for them, and that's like it's a big part of. Unfortunately, it's a big part of the business plan while you're getting started because it's hard to generate revenue and reinvest and build when you have to. Maybe you play in Calgary tomorrow and you're doing really well and you get a $500 guarantee, but if you got a full band and a trailer and a van and lodging, you pretty much breaking even is a good thing, So it's hard to continue. But there's incredible programs which are going to be dwindling over the next few years because of our new government. But hopefully that some magically doesn't happen. But I think they're. What did they say? They're
50%
cuts, and so if you ask me this question in 3 years, then that will be a very different answer.
We'll do a follow up.
Yeah, come back.
In our day jobs.
Yeah.
But I come back in summer, then.
Yeah. Edmonton is quite beautiful in the summer, but
then you can't watch hockey though.
So it's really not usually this cold.
Yeah.
People like to say -40 in Canada, but it doesn't happen that often. Yeah. So this is particularly cold.
I had it today.
Yes, you did.
And in your opinion, does it make sense? Does it longer make sense to record full-length records?
Not right now. So we usually tell artists that we work with. Because of, again, it's hard to build their careers when it's difficult to generate revenue as a musician, and it's especially difficult to generate profit. Like if you can break even, like you're doing pretty good. So what we usually recommend to artists is like just do a song at a time, so you can keep your costs down for recording, and release a single at a time.
so that you can keep your momentum up. Like, you always have new material out. Every time you release a song, you get better at releasing a song, because that's an art form in itself. And you're giving your audience fresh new material, and you can do something with it every time. So you release a song, you can have a release show, and there's actually there's a reason to go. It's not just like, I got another show, and then that audience we talked about is less and less willing if there's nothing new. So I think for most people, it makes sense to just do a single at a time, just so you can keep your momentum up. And then what we tell artists is, like, while you're doing that, while you're like, maybe release a song every 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, whatever works for that particular artist, and then just apply for grants. And if you get one, then you can start to look at something, a larger body of work. But the main thing is, we want people to have their careers need to be building, right? So
I think, like, another aspect of that we've heard from a few of our clients recently about that is they've also enjoyed it from a creative perspective, because I think with how much music and how easy it is to discover new music now, they're influenced more and more by a wider variety of music. So when they're only doing one song every few months, they feel that it's easier to shift and grow in terms of the sound that they want, rather than, you do 12 songs and then you got to wait a year and a half before you can do all those things, kind of thing. Yeah.
And I think that the consumers there are not listening anymore to a full-length record from the beginning to the end, or
I'm not sure that I even
right, I know. We're just as bad. We like, it feels like, and I don't know if there's any truth to this, but it feels like the life cycle of a single is just as long as a full length, and more so what I'm saying is the life cycle of a full length is just as short as a single, Like, it doesn't really last any longer,
No, what I recognize is that that the younger people, they say, when a song is 3 months old, then they say that the song is old, after 3 months.
That's true.
But does it make sense afterwards, you release a single, then to record an EP, or how would you go further?
Well, I think what a lot of artists are doing is they record a single at a time, and then when they reach a certain threshold, then they'll just kind of repackage it as an EP. Or an LP, depending on how many songs they have. But so, for instance, like, let's say the plan in the long run is to do, let's say, a 5-song EP. Often you'll see an artist release 3 or maybe even 4 of them, and then the last release, like the 4th or the 5th release, will be the EP. So it's kind of like re-releasing the ones already out there.
Okay.
And it doesn't, maybe I'm wrong in saying this, but it doesn't seem like the audience really cares that they're just being re-released, so it seems to be okay.
Well, it's kind of like a playlist world, right? Like with Spotify, it's so easy to make playlists that I think people don't like. It's funny that little thing of putting in a CD and having to eject and put another CD will completely change your mind frame of how you consume music. So
how would you describe the difference between the English and the French part of the country?
Well, I've only been to Quebec a few times. I love Montreal. It's such a beautiful city, and I don't know if I can really comment on that.
I think it's like from the outside, like it does say that we are a bilingual country. I'm not sure that everybody can speak both English and French.
Do you speak French?
I took French in school, but no, I cannot speak French. So, and you can't either, right?
No, I don't. I'd say, like, well, at least amongst our friends and family and whatnot, I would say around here, less than 10% speak French.
My wife claims that she can speak French, but it's not true.
My wife does not even claim. So,
but I think the Canadian French doesn't sound like French. It sounds more like French with a strange accent.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I've heard that. I don't know, because I don't know what real French sounds like. Except for the movies and stuff. So great.
Thanks, guys.
No problem. Thank you, Mark. Thanks for coming.
Appreciate it.
Ja, am nächsten Tag fliege ich dann von
Edmonton nach Los Angeles zur NAMM-Show und erlebe einen Temperaturunterschied von fast 60 Grad Celsius. Und ich kann es eigentlich kaum glauben, dass die Reise, die ich so lange und intensiv geplant habe, vorbei ist. Ja, und am Flughafen in LA fühlt es sich komisch an, als ich dann im Pullover den Flughafen verlasse und nach draußen komme, ohne Angst zu haben, erfrieren zu müssen. Und ich hatte mich irgendwie schon an diese extreme Kälte gewöhnt. Und ja, die Kanada-Reise war für mich persönlich wirklich ein unglaubliches Erlebnis, das ich wohl nie vergessen werde und an das ich noch sehr lange mit etwas Wehmut zurückdenken werde. Das Land bei dieser extremen Kälte zu erleben, war schon wirklich etwas Außergewöhnliches, ja, und auch hoffentlich Einmaliges. Und neben der Kraft und der Schönheit der Natur bleiben aber die Menschen in meiner Erinnerung, die mich, den Crazy Drum, so herzlich aufgenommen und während meiner Reise unterstützt haben. Und ich hoffe auf jeden Fall auf ein Wiedersehen. Und ich hoffe aber auch, dass euch jetzt dieser sehr lange Report zur Studioszene Kanada gefallen hat. Ich habe aus diesem Trip auf jeden Fall sehr viel mitgenommen und für alle, die mehr über die Studios und das Equipment erfahren wollen, gibt es einen ausführlichen Reisebericht in der Sound and Recording Ausgabe 2020, die am 3. April erscheint. Und ja, einen umfassenden Reisebericht von mir gibt es auch in unserem Wochenrückblick Episode 9, in der ich Klaus von meiner mega krassen Tour erzähle. Ja, und das war's jetzt auch von mir. Folgt uns auf allen Kanälen, bewertet uns, wo ihr könnt, kauft unser Heft, besucht die Studioszene. Alle Infos gibt es dazu auf soundandrecording.de. Mein Name ist Marc Bohn. Danke fürs Zuhören. Bis zum nächsten Mal. Tschüss. Macht's gut.